Thank you all for staying with us on NTV Weekend Edition. Now, on Talk of the Nation, we did see that this week members of Parliament have been inspecting programs run by Uganda Support to municipal infrastructure development across the country. The World Bank funded program looks to improve infrastructure across the country, and we're saying that with just 2 years to the end of the program, we are just curious to understand the progress, and we are joined by the coordinator of the program, Dr. ISAAC MUTENYO, to help us assess its progress. I mean, how are the different districts across the country embracing the program, and moving ahead, what should we expect? A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sandra, and good evening to you, viewers.
What would you say is the general performance, if you were to assess the performance of USMID since its inception? I know we are in the second phase. The 5 years were gone and they were awarded a second phase. How are we performing?
Thank you very much for inviting me here. I think, generally speaking, the project is performing very well. And as you know, we started the first phase, which took 5 years, and we finished on time. All the resources from the funder, that's the World Bank, were received on time and used, absorbed, and all the work that we intended to do was done. And we closed on time in 2018, in December. Now, because of that good performance, the project was extended under phase 2, which we are running now, which is left with 2 years to go. I think largely there's a very good performance. Of course, we've had some issues like anybody else to do with COVID, where for 2 years the pace of implementation was very low. But there are projects, infrastructure projects we have completed in some cities, like in Arua, in Jinja we are completing, and Bale. So I think, albeit the COVID problems, I think the project is performing very well. And our plans, all the projections that we have now, is that we should be able to finish the project on time by December 2023.
2023. Now, we have new cities such as Gulu, we have Arua, we have Mbarara, we have Jinja. Will these be covered under the scope of works to be carried out in the next coming 2 years?
Yes. You know, the first phase of the project had 14 municipalities.
Yes.
And out of those, 10 of them are already cities. The ones you are mentioning, Gulu, Arua, Mbale, they are part of these. And I think because of the infrastructure projects we did in the first phase, and also the institutional growth of the leaders, especially the technical staff there, I think that triggered the transition to cities. And they are part and parcel of the current project. And if you look at the projections in terms of how much resources these cities are going to get, they are a lot more than the municipalities. However, many of these cities, you know, have expanded, and that means the demands for the services are a lot more, it's very high. Now, the grants that they are receiving from the project, I think have, I mean, if you compare to the needs, the funds are very, very low. And until we have a revision on how much funds they can get, they still receive funds now as municipalities. So they are part of the project, and we are still doing the infrastructure work, but we are doing it to the scale of a municipality, not to the scale of a city. Yeah.
Well, if we are to look at the second phase, which has mostly been affected by COVID-19, just like other people, other sectors of the economy, how would you say, what would you say are the other challenges that you're facing? Do you feel that the different cities or say districts or people are embracing the program?
Yeah, I think one challenge is the high expectations.
From the locals?
Even the locals, yes. The locals and the leaders. The thing is, when the cities were pronounced, if I may use an example. The
expectations were very, very, very high.
Now, a city which was a municipality and was receiving, let's say, 20 billion from the project as a municipality, and it has expanded both in population and in size, and also the demands, as a city, your demands are higher. They would expect that the 20 billion should increase. True. So, but it's not increasing under the current project. So, the expectations are so high. Now you find, I mean, some cities get like, we do like 2 kilometers of road. For a municipality that may make sense, but for a city where you have expanded, some cities which had an area of 50 square kilometers have expanded to 300 square kilometers. now the expectations are very high. Even those places which have been annexed in, which are still rural, also want tarmac roads in there. So the expectations are very, very high.
Well, speaking of expectations, we've also had issues or complaints of sloppy contractors, especially in the areas of Busia and Mbale. Have you had these complaints, and are they valid? And what are you currently doing about them?
Yeah, we have problems of the slow pace of contractors. We have issues in Mbarara, we have issues in Kabale and Tungamo, where the contractors' performance is not as we expect. And but we have to look at two faces of this. One is that we have a low capacity of those who are managing the contracts. That's the local governments themselves, the technical staff. But then also a low capacity, even of the contractors. Now, if you are in a development trajectory like ours, where we want to boost the performance of the locals, okay, there are some things that we have learned to contain, that we still have to take on some of the local contractors. The least performing contractors, unfortunately, are local. And so we want them to perform. So what we are doing in the case of Mbarara, for instance, Mbarara, Kabala and Tungamo, we have instituted a team from the ministry, from the headquarters of the project, to offer additional support to supervision of that contractor. In fact, now we have, for those areas, we have every 2 weeks support. Every 2 weeks we have technical staff from the ministry who go there and offer additional support. And the reason, like I've said, is to build the capacity of those supervising, that's the cities, but also the contractors.
Now, usually in terms of such programs, there's always a complaint by the general public that such contracts are being given to international firms and the like. And you do mention that the least performing ones are the local contractors. Could that be contributing to less contracts being given to the local companies?
No, you know the procurement process is open. It's an open procurement. So the opportunities are available to both the international and the local. So we don't segregate. Whoever is evaluated to be the most competent, like in this case the locals I'm telling you, were evaluated as the best competent, even when some international companies bid in those areas. So there's no segregation whatsoever. So whichever company is awarded a contract, that company is the one which emerged at evaluation stage as the best. But again, because of the interest in the local content, because we want to build our local content, we have made a provision in our contracts that when an international firm is bidding for these projects, they have to make a provision of 30% of the work to be subcontracted to the locals. And that, we think, is one way of building the capacity of the locals. So you believe this program has sort of transferred skills to the local communities and the local... I think so. I think so. And I think for... there's actually in... I think it's in Entebbe, Movende and Masaka. That's a contract which was won by an international firm, a foreign company. But they've subcontracted a big chunk of work to a local firm, which is doing very well, and that's a testimony that actually, apart from just doing the roads and the infrastructure, there's some skills transfer that is taking place. Well, as we almost come to the end of this conversation, I want to hear your thoughts on the varying rates of construction for markets, roads and other infrastructure. There have been some complaints about the varying rates. How are you dealing with this? And what determines the rates that you sort of use? The rates for the vendors, or is it the rates for the construction? Yes, for both. Well, we are not doing so much of markets. The current large markets which are done in the cities are done by Ministry of Local Government. We are doing taxi parks. We also have plans to do some markets, but small scale. We haven't done any yet, but we have them in our investment menu. But what we do is, for the case of the taxi parks and bus terminals, where we upgrade a taxi park from what it was existing. We did one in Arua and in Tororo. The thing is, before construction, an assessment is done on what people were paying to the local government. And then once that assessment is done, after construction, we do, it's called a management strategy. In other words, you carry out a strategy that when people are getting into that tax park, it has how the management is going to be done, how the operation and maintenance is going to be done, and also what the revenue structure is. So that is the one which informs the rates that the vendors pay. But again, that is managed by the local governments. In other words, if we do one in Tororo, like we've done a tax park, that management on how people pay the rates and the operation and maintenance is transferred to the local government itself and the people who, I mean the vendors who are trading in those
So
areas.
2 years ahead, as we conclude our conversation, what should we expect? What are the key things that you believe the public should know about this program?
I think in the 2 years to come, we are going to see a lot of construction because in the past 2 years, there has been a lot of planning and you know, also the delays because of the COVID pandemic. But all the planning has been done. We have all the sub-projects been done, documented, engineering designs done. So I think the public is going to see a lot of construction in all the 22 cities and municipalities we are working in. And I think, and that's what we are looking forward to. The only problem which we have faced, which I hope it will be resolved, is the delays caused by procurement. And these delays are mostly occasioned by complaints. Every procurement that we go out to do, people complain. The bidders, they complain, and that really costs us a lot of time.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. ISAAC MUTENYO, for joining us tonight and helping us get an idea on how the USMID is currently performing. Thank you as well for joining us. We'll take a short break, and NTV Weekend Edition will return shortly.